The adverb is not your friend, and today we are going to hear from Stephen King on why you should never use adverbs. And I have been a high school English teacher for the past 7 years and have been writing for the last 16. And of course, there are some instances, which we are going to talk about today, where you should use adverbs. But by and large, people who litter their works with adverbs have writing that is weak and struggles to connect and entertain people. And I'm guessing you are like me and haven't sold millions of books yet and are on your writing journey. And my name is Ian, and I am here to help you grow and to help reinforce the lessons that I know are true in my own head, because sometimes I'm there writing on the computer or writing longhand and I'm like, damn, this adverb sounds so good. Screw Stephen King, screw Cormac McCarthy, screw everyone else. And then I write the adverb, but then I come back in revision and I'm looking at the sentence and I'm like, damn, I don't think this is right. And I rewrite the sentence a couple different ways and I'm like, okay. And then I look at the sentences and almost every single time the adverb sentence sucks. So if you guys want to see more great videos on writing and on Stephen King and the greatest authors and books of all time, subscribe to the channel, check out some of the playlists down below, and enough from me. Let us now hear from King. The adverb is not your friend. Adverbs are words that modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. They are the ones that usually end in ly. Adverbs, like the passive voice, seem to have been created with the timid writer in mind. With adverbs, the writer usually tells us he or she is afraid, she isn't expressing himself clearly, that he or she is not getting the point or picture across. Consider the sentence, he closed the door firmly. It's by no means a terrible sentence. At least it's got an active verb going for it. But ask yourself if firmly really has to be there. You can argue that it expresses a degree of difference between he closed the door and he slammed the door. And you'll get no argument from me. But what about context? What about all the enlightening, not to say emotionally moving, prose which came before he closed the door firmly? Shouldn't this tell us how he closed the door? And if the foregoing prose does tell us, isn't firmly an extra word? Isn't it redundant? Someone out there now is accusing me of being tiresome and anal retentive. I deny it. I believe the road to hell is paved with adverbs, and I will shout it from the rooftops. To put it another way, they are like dandelions. If you have one on your lawn, it looks pretty and unique. If you fail to root it out, however, you find 5 the next day, 50 the day after that. And then, my brothers and sisters, your lawn is totally, completely, propagatively covered with dandelions. By then you see them for the weeds they really are. But by then, it's gasp, too late. And King is 100% correct here. I remember one of my friends and colleagues and peers at university, he was getting his PhD in creative writing, and he had this back catalog of short stories that he had written, and it felt like they were good, but no one had published them. And at that time, he had gotten a novel deal and an advance from Random House, but he was like, Ian, these short stories are just as good as anything I've put out, but I just know there's something wrong with them. And so he decided to go back through them all, and the only thing that he changed was removing every single adverb from 10 short stories that didn't get published. And so he sent all those short stories back out again to everyone. And he wasn't a big name author yet. He really isn't now. He's had a couple novels published since then, but he only had this advance. So nobody knew that he was kind of skewering toward a more big time author. But 5 of those 10 short stories ended up getting published. One of them by a major magazine. And I know these are like anecdotal stories from the road and are super silly when it comes to talking about adverbs. But let me tell you guys about a real life example that you guys can see today or hopefully tomorrow. I want you guys to think of the biggest bullshitter in your life. And maybe it's me right now. But I guarantee you, they use a ton of adverbs. We were literally going to the store and this guy was totally staring at me. And I was like, how shamefully do you have to feel as a human to look at a woman as she's walking into the grocery store? And, I learned this idea while studying communication and other things on my pursuit to become a better speaker, even though maybe I haven't realized that goal yet. But something I learned, and this was at a public speaking group I used to be a part of was that people who use adverbs are bullshitting you and that you should avoid them even while speaking because they unconsciously create red alarms in our brain. Okay, but maybe you don't want to believe that story either. Maybe I'm just lying and I can get away with it because I'm just not using adverbs. But let us return to King's idea that I've had over 1,000 students at this point. I have been writing basically my entire life. I spent 8 years of my life in academia pursuing a PhD, and I was like, you know what, I'm getting out of here. And I've worked with many of my peers. I work with you guys in my writing group, in my free writing school. I do all of that. And if you guys want to join my free writing school where I teach you guys how to write and build an audience for free, the link is down in the description below. The course and community has not launched yet, but you can get on the waiting list. And when it launches, you'll get an email that says it is launched. And then you can go in. I'm just trying to build the course up so there is 15 plus hours of content and a bunch of other cool stuff on there so you guys can just hop on in and it doesn't feel like it's like this empty shell of a community. Anyway, what I have noticed, and the most important thing, is that most of us were able to get away with a lot of BS in college writing and high school writing or just in our own personal writing. And people don't really call us out on it. But the number one way to get better as a writer is to focus on sentence structure. And most people I know who are writers have no idea about sentence structure, don't care about it, don't study it, don't understand the different types of sentences, but you don't have to study sentences to learn sentence structure. You can, and that can kind of provide a shortcut, but all you have to do is get in there. All you have to do is start writing sentences. But adverbs, I would say 3 different things prevent you from exploring sentence structure well, and that is adverbs, the passive voice, and too many pronouns. And I should also note that when it comes to the passive voice, adverbs, and pronouns, the best writers in the world use all 3 of them, but always under, well, it depends on what, but less than 5% of words that you should be using should be adverbs. And more likely, a lot of the best writers are using at most 1 to 2%. And with the passive voice, it's around 10%. And with the pronouns, I can't give you those numbers. I've never been able to find them. But I do know that most of the best writers in the world don't use a lot of pronouns or severely try to limit them. But when you start to limit those things and cut them out completely, go cold turkey, you have to learn new ways to form sentences because it's easy to write a sentence with a lot, a pronoun, the passive voice, and an adverb. That's the easy way to work around a lot of different things. But if you cut that out, you start finding different pathways. You start taking and walking in different aspects of the forest or different trails in the forest that you've never been on before. And you start to find waterfalls and places to stay and so many other beautiful things. And then you realize that you're living in a world and that the forest trails never end. And you start to become a master, of the forest. But if you just stay in your own little kind of zone with these sentence structures that only can function in a limited scope with adverbs, pronouns, and the passive voice, then you'll never see the complexity of the world. And a recent data science study was conducted, and when comparing an individual author's novels, critics tend to rate an author's book that uses fewer adverbs per 10,000 words more highly than those by the same author that use more. And that wasn't the populace, but that is critics. And there's obviously exceptions to this word. One of my favorite authors, Nabokov, he uses a ton of adverbs. He just goes crazy with them. And he's considered one of the best prose stylists of all time. And so what I'm calling on you here today to do is to eliminate them completely from your writing if you've never done it before. And just see if it's better. See if your results. Do what my friend did. There's no hurt. That graveyard of stuff that didn't get published or you never sent out. Remove all the adverbs. Make stronger sentences. And go see what happens. See if things get better. And maybe it doesn't get published. But eventually, if you start stacking the deck in your favor, you are going to get over that tipping point. You will become a good author. And so I just want to say that I believe in you. Adverbs or not, I know that you can write conscious and your books can transform people's consciousness and thus transform the world. I'm here to support your journey. I will be posting more writing videos daily, and I will see you in the next one, or one day I will see you on my bookshelf.